The second half of chapter 14 of Genesis is really interesting because Abram actually saves the people and the wealth of the city of Sodom. This is the same city of Sodom that's supposed to be so evil. So we have to ask ourselves, what is going on here? Why is Abram actually saving the people and the wealth of the city of Sodom? Welcome to Carving the Bible. My name is Francisco, and on this channel, I carve the Bible in granite. And as I do that, I research the ideas and reflect on them, and then I share those with you in these videos. So, as a reminder, what happened in the first part of chapter 14 is that the kingdoms of Canaan rebelled against Elam, which was their overlord. The following year, the king of Elam gathers some allies and goes marching to Canaan to subdue those kingdoms again. So there's a big battle, and the Canaanites lose. And as part of that, they sack the city of Sodom, and they take everything, including the people and its wealth. And Lot, the nephew of Abram, is part of that because he had been living in Sodom, and so he gets taken along with everybody else. This is what happens when Abram learns about Lot being taken. Let me read you the verses. There are verses 14 and 15, Genesis chapter 14. And Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, and he led out his trained servants born in his house, 318, and pursued as far as Dan. And he divided himself against them by night, he and his servants, and smote them, and pursued them as far as Hobah, which is to the left of Damascus. So basically, Abram takes a few men, 318 of his own, and along with some allies, pursues 4 armies, including the army of Elam, the army of Shinar, which is Babylon, and 2 others. So this whole scenario is rather unrealistic. Now, it's possible that the original story would talk only about a raid, because verse 15 says, and he divided himself against them by night. So maybe you could say that it was a raid where they divided the army, they made a diversion on one end, and then the rest of it just went and got Lot out. Maybe that's a possibility. But that's not all that this story says. Let me read for you verses 16 and 17. And he brought back all the property, and brought again his brother Lot and his property, and the women also, and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after he had returned from smiting Hadorlamer and the kings that were with him into the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's valley. So what this is telling us that Abram and his small group actually not only brought out Lot, but rescued all the people of Sodom and all their property, and then they marched away. It seems pretty unrealistic that 318 men plus his allies could have defeated the 4 armies, including Elam, Shinar, and their allies. Because even if they had managed to get everybody out, bringing hundreds of people, their flocks, their herds, their property, and bringing them back into Canaan would have made it logistically almost impossible. The armies from the east would have very quickly caught up with them and either taken them again or destroyed them. So what's going on here? What's the meaning of all of this? And I think part of it is in the text. Let me read for you verses 18 to 20. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of the Most High God. And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heavens and earth. And blessed be the Most High God, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And he gave him 1/10 of all. Abram is being treated almost as a king himself, because what he has done is what kings do. He has gathered an army. He has taken his army into battle. He has defeated his opponents. He has rescued the people. He has brought back the loot that was taken from them. And then he is met by 2 kings upon his return, the king of Sodom and the king of Jerusalem. And the king of Jerusalem praises him and says that he has been helped by the Most High God. And that's a title that we're going to discuss in a moment. But right now the point is that Abram's elevation, the raising of his stature would not have been possible if he had not saved the people of Sodom. If he had just done a small raid and taken his nephew Lot, it would have been one thing. He would just be a raider. But he didn't do that. He not only rescued Lot, but he rescued all the people of Sodom and all their property. And you can see the results of that in the next part, when he meets the king of Sodom. And the king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the souls and take the property for yourself." And Abram said to the king of Sodom, "I have lifted up my hand to the Lord, the Most High God, possessor of heavens and earth. If from a thread, even to a sandal thong, yes, if of all that is thine, I take anything, that thou may not say, I have made Abram rich, save only which the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men that went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them take their portion." The king of Sodom tries to pretend that he is the one who's going to be the arbiter. He's the one who's going to say, "Oh, you take the property and I'll take the people." But in fact, Abram has all the power here. He's the one who has the army that defeated the others. The king of Sodom doesn't have an army anymore. Abram is the one who's controlling the property. Abram is the one who's controlling the people. So the king of Sodom has almost no power, even though he's pretending that he does. The king of Sodom is the same king that fell into the tar pit a few verses earlier in the first half of chapter 14. So he's returned. I thought when I read that he was a goner, that he was going to drown in those tar pits. But he's reappeared. Maybe he escaped the tar pits, or maybe it's a new king. Who really knows? And yet, even in this situation, Abram says, "I will not take anything of yours, because I don't want it to seem like you have given me my riches. I don't want it to seem like I am somehow beholden to you or in your power or your vassal." So let's go back to something that King Melchizedek said. He blesses Abram in the name of the Most High God. This is a new title. This is not a title that has appeared for God in the Bible before. It's actually a Canaanite title, El Elyon, the Most High God. What it really means is it's the God that is over all the other gods, the Most High God. It echoes what the Persian kings would call themselves, the King of Kings, which meant that they were not only a king, but they were a king above all the other kings. So why use the title of El Elyon in this story, the Canaanite title for the Most High God? And this is really important because it tells us something about what they were thinking when this story was actually written, or at least compiled together. Most likely right after the Babylonian exile, when the Judeans had to deal with the people who were already in the area, the Canaanites. Number one, it would have resonated with the local people there, the Canaanites who still lived in the area right when the Judeans returned from exile. They would have recognized that title. Number two, it would have associated their own God, the Lord, with the Most High God in their theological system. It would have shown that the Judean God was also the Most High God. So if you see the story in the time that it was actually probably compiled, right after the Babylonian exile, all of this makes sense. So you might ask, well, why Sodom? Doesn't it have a reputation for evil? Why save that city? Why not save some other city? Well, for a couple of reasons. The most important one in my mind is that city is long gone. That city no longer had people who had lived there. There were no heirs. There was no political descendants to that city. There was nobody there to refute this story, say, well, we don't remember anybody, Abram, ever saving our people or our property from these eastern kings. So it was easy to incorporate this story into the story of Sodom. And secondly, it also would show that Abram would not fall under the sway of corruption, because the city of Sodom did have a reputation for evil and corruption. But it could not corrupt Abram. And yet, after all of this, Abram's problem remains. And we go into chapter 15 at the end of the tablet that I'm carving. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, "Fear not, Abram. I am your shield, your exceeding great reward." And Abram said, "Lord God, What will you give me, seeing I go childless, and the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus? His main concern is, I have no heir. And it's still a concern for him, even after this grand story. So we're left with the question, how is God going to fulfill this promise?